You did a wonderful job.
Thank you, my friend. I will leave the stage to you.
Thank you, April. And friends, it is my 5th time and I can't believe it. I've got to tell you, I love being here. For someone like me who works with literacy and who works with children and who works with Aboriginal interests, I have to tell you, this is just the best conference in the world. Can you imagine a conference where people get up at 7 o'clock or 6:30 on a Saturday morning to come 4:45? It just doesn't get any better. And wherever Phil is, if he's looking for a quote, ladies and gentlemen, if you have your notepads out this morning, I mean it. I'm going to give you some things that are worth writing down. And here's the first one. Maya Angelou said, "Parents who know better, do better." And that's true. You're here because you love your kids. And I want all of you to know that if ever you look at Indigenous parents and you say they're not doing a good job of raising their kids, often it's because of residential schools. We love our children as much as anybody else. This is true. Parents who know better, do better. And that's why you're here, so that you can go home and make a better life for your children. And it will be my objective through the course of the morning to make sure that I always focus on that part. Second quote. Somebody asked me the other day, now that you're the age you are, is there anything that you're absolutely sure of? And I said, yeah. Before you turn 50, your body takes care of you. After you turn 50, payback. You take care of your body. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's because you're not 50. Your eyes, your retinas tighten, and all of a sudden you find yourself hurting at a place that you're not supposed to hurt, and all of a sudden all of these things start to happen, and that's why old people sit around and all they do is talk about their health, their ulcers, their hemorrhoids, and this goes on and on and on. I saw a couple of people squint when I said the hemorrhoid word. So, that being said, Edmonton, I've got to tell you, I'm just so stoked to be here. It's just like coming home. Yesterday morning I spoke to a conference in Niagara Falls. There were 600 French immersion teachers. And I said, well, I'm off to Edmonton. And I saw about 25 arms come up. And I said, what? We're from Edmonton. And I said, well, the Oilers are up 4-1 right now, aren't we? We're playing well. And then, of course, Edmonton, I look around you and I think, what are you going to do with that stadium? I mean, it's a huge expense. I'm anxious to see because the Rogers, I never thought they'd have it done, but it's done and it looks amazing. So, let me get started before I run out of time. Can I start with this, please? Since I've seen you last, my mom and dad have both died, and I would like to share my healing song with those of you who have lost someone. This morning, Michelle picked me up at my hotel, and the first thing I did is I asked about her mom and dad, and she just lost her dad, and he was very young. And then when I talked to Darren, similar, we talk about that kind of thing. So I'd like to share this with you. My mother was older, and she was ready to go. She was 89 years old. And I was sitting at her bedside, and at one point she said to me, son, you're worse than my cancer. Looking at you just makes me want to cry. You look so sad. And I said, Mom, I've never seen somebody die before, especially somebody that I love the way I love you. And she said, you told me that when you play your flute, it helps you breathe. Go get your flute. And friends, I went outside and I brought this little flute in. And she said, go ahead, breathe. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what I did. I sat at my mom's bed and I went like this. I played that every day in September, October, November, and on December the 10th, my mom died, and that became my healing song. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Métis. You can see I always wear my sash, or I carry my sash, so you don't confuse me with being white. For years, we hid who we were because we were persecuted and we were unfairly judged just by the nature of the fact that my blood was part Ojibwe. My blood is part Osage, which is why I'm 6'2". The reason I have a stumpy nose is because my dad's mom is Innu. We hid those things and we don't anymore. I'm Métis. And in my tradition, we have songs for occasions. I have a love song that's called Vicky, I Miss You. I have a healing song, and what you just heard there is my healing song. I can sell books, which Audrey's is so kindly doing for me, and I'd like to thank them for doing that. And I could also sell flutes. I can sell music. The only one thing that as an Indigenous man I can't sell is healing. If you have need of that song, please pick up a bookmark, email me, and all you have to do is say, David, I need your song. And it could be that somebody has recently passed, somebody's sick in your family, and maybe there's just some need, and I will send it to you. Not the way you just heard it, but with the help of my taxi driver, my very close friend, Syl Thompson, who plays a wonderful acoustic guitar. And if you emailed me tonight and said, David, I can use your healing song, this is what you would hear. It's a track of guitar played by Syl Thompson from Victoria. This is my healing song, and no, I won't play it all. I'll take a little bit more, please, Peter. This is my healing song. Okay, is that not enough to put you all to sleep? So let me start by thanking Wendy and April and the committee for allowing me to come back and share some of these things with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't mind telling you, I wish that I would have been in an audience like yours when my sons were the age they were. I have two sons who are both succeeding in life by my standards because they're both happy. But in fairness, they missed a lot of opportunities because I didn't have the scoop. And so this morning I'm here to give you the scoop. And I'll try to do it in an hour, and then I've got a session where I'll continue the scoop with some of you in a workshop. However, let me start with this one. Friends, a lot of our children are suffering from mental health issues. And whether or not you know it, there's a week now in Canada that's devoted to mental health issues. And it shouldn't just be a week. It should be every day. Do you know how many of your kids right now are suffering from some side of a social or some sort of a pressure or anxiety disorder? It's frightening. And unlike an issue where if somebody breaks their arm, you see a cast. If they limp, you see that they have an issue. If the child is bleeding, you can see the blood. But you can't when it comes to something in their minds, when it's something that's mental, and it's so hard for them to express that. The very best way I can do it is with that personal thing. Hi, Maxine, I hadn't seen you there. What a wonderful, by the way, very, very quickly, I have friends from around Alberta that are here. Darren, who I've not seen, Alander, who's at the back corner somewhere, and it's just so nice to see all of you again. Back to a personal story. Friends, I have a little girl who's 18 years old. My daughter went to a private school in Victoria called Glenlyon Norfolk. It's an international baccalaureate program. She took the IB program. She graduated last year with a 92% average. And the reason that she has such a good average is because she's a voracious reader. And the reason my little girl's a voracious reader is because I figured it out. Nobody was here to tell me what I can tell you today, but I figured it out. To become a voracious reader, you don't have to be white, you don't have to be rich, and you don't have to be brilliantly gifted. Anybody can become a reader, and I didn't know that. I had to live my life to understand that. So I've got two sons who don't read because of me, and I've got a little girl who's a voracious reader because of me, and probably because of me, my little girl suffers from an anxiety disorder. Ladies and gentlemen, my daughter's 18 years old. She's beautiful in every sense of the word. She's bright, 92% average, and my little girl should be going to UVic in creative writing because she was accepted, or Concordia, or Ryerson, and she's at home in her room this morning. Why? Because she doesn't want to go. She came home in grade 11 one day and she said, Dad, I don't want to go back to school. And I said, what do you mean? She said, look at me. And she lifted her sweater and her whole body was covered with hives. And I said, sweetheart, what happened? And she said, look at my clothes. She was soaked. And I said, sweetheart, what's wrong? And she said, I don't want to be there. And I said, why? And she said, I don't know, Dad. When the teacher closes the door, I don't want to be there. I don't like being in a cafeteria where there's all those people around me. I don't like, and I said, sweetie, cool, calm down. Should we go see the doctor? No, I don't like doctors. And I said, baby girl, what can I do for you? And she said, let me stay home. I said, sweetheart, stay home. Stay home. Well, that lasted 3 weeks. And then I said, sweetheart, you got to go to school. And so we went to a doctor and to a psychologist and psychiatrist. And when we got to the psychiatrist, you know what the psychiatrist said? Victoria, do you know how many students that I treat who are exactly like you? And ladies and gentlemen, I don't mind telling you, I don't think when I grew up in Saskatchewan, social anxiety disorders were prominent as they are today. And I'm not exactly sure why it happens, but I think it has to do with the expectations our kids have of us. I think it's got to do with social media. I think sometimes kids see more than they have to see, and they think that they've got to have all of that. My little girl has been across the ocean 48 times. Every year she goes to Paris for des salons du livre parce que Madame Maternelle, c'est français. My little girl's seen Paris, London, New Delhi, Beijing, and I think she thinks that her dads or expectations are right there, and they're not. You know what I want from my little girl? I want her to be happy and use the gifts that God gave her. That's all I want for her. I want all of you to know this. Some of your children right now are feeling this inside, and it's for you as a parent to say, how do you feel? And if they need help, you make sure you get them the help. It's not something that's just going to pass, get over it. No. I also wanted to go on to the next point. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to make this clear. You all know what Truth and Reconciliation Commission's been talking about. And I want you to know that I'm struggling. I'm struggling with this. I'm not sure that we Canadians are ready to tell our kids the truth. And I'm not sure at what age we're ready to tell them the truth. Tonight, there's a book being launched in Ottawa with Senator Murray Sinclair, who headed the commission, and a good friend of mine, the author, Ojibwe author Joseph Boyden, and that's to release his new book. And Joseph said, I think this book is for high school kids and university students. And it was just released yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to pick it up yet. It's a graphic novel. But when he said that, my first thought was, don't underestimate those kids. Middle school kids know a lot more than you think they do. You know the acronym, LGBT. I've got some news for you. Your kids know it too. In grade 4, they know what LGBT stands for. It stands for lesbian, gay, transgender, and bisexual. That's what it stands for. And sometimes when I say it, some people say, oh, you shouldn't say that. Come on. It's 2016. Your kids all know it. The question is, do you know what Q2 stands for? Q, because I hear Justin Trudeau, whenever he talks about it, he uses LGBTQ2. Raise your arm if you know what Q stands for. It stands for queer. When I was young, if you called somebody a queer, it was an ultimate put down. It's not anymore. A lot of gay people will say, I'm queer, which means I'm not just kind of the norm. I don't fit into any of those categories. I'm queer. And they don't see it as a put down. And do you know what the 2 stands for? Of course, it stands for two-spirited, and that is inclusive to those of us in Indigenous communities who have various sexual preferences. Your kids all know it. It's just an amazing thing. And yet, we're saying, let's give them this truth and let's not give. This is Joseph, who I have the ultimate respect for, Buffy Ste. Marie. I was in Sault Ste. Marie 3 weeks ago, and Buffy performed there in the Sioux. I think they brought her in just for me. Maybe not. By the way, I had a chance to go and hear this woman. She's about this tall. She's 75 years old, and she can bring down an auditorium with 10,000 people. She rocks. Buffy went to Ottawa, and there at the Museum of Man, you know what she said? We should have a separate room for adults that relates to the TRC recommendations. Listen to this. We should have a room where only adults can see the atrocities that were committed in residential schools here in Edmonton, Calgary, Regina, Winnipeg, across our country. A room for adults. And my first thought was this. I love Buffy, and I'm not sure she's right. The Holocaust. I've been there. I've been to Poland. I've been into gas chambers, and they don't have a separate room for kids. There's only one place to go. You go in and you look at these huge ovens, and at some point a child will say to mom and dad, and what were these ovens for? And you've got to look at the children and say, they put people in there. And the kids will say, what? But there's not a separate room for kids. Some parents may choose not to bring their kids in, but now, ladies and gentlemen, do you know what Buffy thinks that we should have in that separate room? Did you know that in St. Anne's School, they found an electric chair that was used on children? Did you know that in countless schools from coast to coast in our beautiful Canada, they found cattle probes that they used on children? Did you know that they hooked up kids to electric wires to make them do things that they wanted to make them do in our wonderful country? And here's the truth. If it's truth or reconciliation, where do you draw the lines? At what point are we going to tell our kids the truth? At what point are we going to stand up and have the courage we need? And that's why when I listen to this, I always say, and by the way, this is my theme song since I've been running into trouble. I've been running into trouble because I'm running around telling kids the truth. Now, with little kids that are in grade 6, I don't say to those kids, there's an electric chair. No, but you know what I have told them? I've said, Canada, my beautiful country, is the only country in the world that built cemeteries next to schools. When we built a residential school, we put a cemetery next to it. And you know why. We knew children were going to be dying, and we did it anyway. And I've gotten in huge trouble for telling that to kids. And subsequently, I go back to my car, I play it, I turn up the volume, and I say, this is crazy. I'm finding all kinds of trouble. And what I keep saying to parents is this one. Parents, if you haven't been told before, your kids deserve your trust. I did too. And my mom and dad didn't trust me, nor did my teachers. You know what happened under my watch? They built those residential schools and they put that cemetery there, and nobody told me. Because if somebody told me, I would have said what my daughters would have said to me. Dad, you're a better person than that. Ladies and gentlemen, when I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, my 18-year-old daughter walks by and she turns off the water and she says, Dad, you know how many people could use that water? And I say, I'm sorry, sweetheart, I do. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm from Saskatchewan. When I was a kid, an 18-year-old kid, I'd finish a Coke, I'd roll down the window of my car because I don't think I had electric windows then. I may have, I don't think so. And I'd take an empty Coke bottle, I'd fling it over the roof of my car into the ditch. Raise your arm if you've ever been guilty of doing that. Yeah, you wouldn't do that today. If I did that today, Victoria would cut my arm off at the elbow and feed it to my dog. You just don't do that. And it's not just the environment that they're taking better care of. It's one another. Friends, it happened to me 3 weeks ago, and it's just a great story. By the way, how many of you know the cartoon character, the Looney Tune cartoon character called Yosemite Sam? Right, he was my favorite. And he's still around. I can't believe it. He's still around. So what's happened is we're driving down the streets of Victoria. There's this 6'9" guy with a cowboy hat. He's got a massive red mustache and red chops. I swear to God, it was Yosemite Sam on the street. I said, Victoria, look at the tall, skinny guy. Hey, she didn't look at him. She looked at me and she said these very words, Dad, you're a better person than that. And I said, oh, baby, don't start on me. She said, how would you like somebody to call you the tall, skinny guy, or the tall, fat guy, or the old, fat guy? What would you like? I said, don't start on me, sweetheart. You've missed him. He's already gone. And she said, Dad, you're a better person than that. I swear to you, even when she's with her girlfriends, if somebody makes reference to somebody in a physical contact, she says, that's not acceptable. These kids are a better generation than my generation and than most of yours. True story. I was in a high school in Toronto not long ago, and there were 4 kids up on the stage. I got there to present at 1 o'clock, and there was maybe 150 students in the auditorium, and they were listening. One was lesbian, one was gay, one was a transgender student, and the other one was bisexual, and they were talking about the challenges they faced in their high school. And I watched 100 kids, and friends, I don't mind telling you, I didn't even hear what those kids on the stage were saying. Do you know what I heard? I heard the audience. I could hear the quiet in the audience. I looked at those kids and I thought, oh my God. They weren't judging them on their sexual preferences or the color of their skin or the income of their parents or their intellectual capabilities. They were completely open to who they were. And I thought, what a beautiful generation. And I mean it. Our kids are so worthy of our trust. And yet, we're hesitant, and we're gonna be the ones to decide when and what. And I say to you, you be brave. Let the words fall out. Your kids deserve it, and so do mine. And I'm running around the country, and I don't mind telling you, ladies and gentlemen, I ran into trouble right here in Edmonton for having said this. I don't trust my government. And I had a teacher come to me and say, you shouldn't say that. I'm working so hard at getting kids to respect government. I said, what do you want from me? I'm here to tell them the truth. Look what our governments have done through the years. Do I trust? I don't. And I honestly don't. You know who I trust? I trust your children and my children. And they're going to make this a better world than I was able to make because they are better than we were. And for those of you who want a real interesting fact, when you look at terrorism in the world and you think, where is our world going to? Do you want to know the one consistent since the beginning of our species? It's gone like death by terrorism, death by war, death by violence has gone consistently down. And I believe within 7 generations, there'll be no more violence. I think there'll be no more terrorism. I think there'll be no more war because every generation we're getting a little smarter. And social media helps. How does it help? It just keeps us on our guard. We can't mess around anymore with those kids. They're going to nail us. Vladimir Putin is homophobic. The man that won The Voice in Russia is gay. And Vladimir Putin was putting the brakes on. That kid wasn't going to represent their country because he was not their idea of what a man should be. Social media exploded in his face, and they had to renege. And this is the sound of the kid who won The Voice. He's 24 years old, 6'4", and when I saw him on YouTube, I said to my daughter, "Now that is a good-looking man." And she said to me, "He has nice eyebrows." I know, crazy. And I better stop this. It's okay. The guy came to entertain us with his choice of music, and that's not why I'm here. Very, very quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, I would want to make sure that you all go away knowing this, so let me start with this. For those of you who can't see me from where you are, these are LG headphones. They're Bluetooth speakers because when I go to Tim Hortons from here, well, we're going out for a steak, but when I go for Timmy's, I plug them in my ear and I listen to books. I'm a learning disabled person. I expect I suffer from attention deficit, though I've never been diagnosed, but for certain I have long and short-term memory issues, and my biggest issue is dyslexia. I can't read a lot of books. I can't read Lord of the Rings. Why? Gandalf and Gandorf, and I'm lost. I even went to the movies, Lord of the Rings. There's so many bad guys packing a white beard unless the guy had a red toque. I said, kill him. Because if he had a red toque, he might be Santa. Spare the big guy and kill all the others. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, I'm not a good reader. I can't read Dan Brown. I can't read. However, I can listen, and I have recently listened to some fantasy that normally I couldn't have accessed. My daughter reads, and I want to read what my daughter's reading, so I listen to it. You know what I just listened to recently? Unbelievable, The Count of Monte Cristo. To hear the book took 56 hours. The Count of Monte Cristo, and I'm a richer person. I mean, the guy is brilliant. For those who haven't figured it out yet, books are nothing more than ideas on paper, period. And if you can access those ideas through sound, right on. I don't even know if books are going to be around in 20 years. I expect they will, but I can tell you that things have changed so much. Kids now can access Harry Potter, Divergent, Hunger Games, any of those things without being a strong reader, and they deserve it. And that is also another way to get your kids reading. And for those of you who have never heard of it before, here's a gift from me to you on this beautiful Saturday morning in Edmonton, where the Oilers come into the season 4 wins and 1 loss, having beaten Calgary twice. Here it is, audible.com. You can go online tonight on audible.com and download a book for free. You can listen to that book and realize the power it has for you as an adult who has to model good reading practices. And if, like me, you're not a strong reader, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to read the things I think my kids should be reading and then help them get there. In my case, it's the other way around. Victoria tells me what she's been reading, and I can't read it. I can't do fantasy because of my dyslexia. I just can't. Instead, Brendan Sanderson, I have listened to about 20 of his books, and I've got to tell you, I absolutely love it. I couldn't read it. Audible.com, and if you're thinking, okay, David, what book would you start with? Let me give you this one. It's called Shantaram. Shantaram. Shantaram is a true story about a guy that got out of jail in Australia, and he went to Mumbai, and he lived in the ghettos of Mumbai. It's an absolutely, and I don't even like that kind of book. I like historical fiction. The guy that reads it is Jeffrey Bauer. He's an Aussie. Are there any Aussies here before I say something bad about your accents? Okay. Normally Australian accents kill me. But Jeffrey Bauer, he's got the ultimate. He does an East Indian accent. He is so amazing. Download Shantaram, and I swear to you, you will get hooked. And like me, you'll become a platinum member. And I'm listening to dozens of books. Back a step. Here's what all of you should know. Your kids will not succeed in Canadian society today unless they read. Schools aren't for kids. They're for kids who can read. And if you say to me, how can you say that? I was a teacher for 17 years. I was a principal for 12 years. I was a father on countless occasions, and they will not succeed unless they can read. That is unfortunate, and it shouldn't be that way, and it's changing slowly. Even in your beautiful city of Edmonton, you've got that wonderful school called I think it's called the Victoria School of Fine Arts. Do you know that they've got the same report card as everybody else? So your child might be gifted in drama or in music or singing, and you know what they send home? A report card that reports on science, English, math, not on your child. We've got a lot of growing to do, and that's where you, as a parent, have to deserve the trust of your kids, and you've got to step up to the plate and say, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. Let's make some changes. And the time is here for change. Every one of your kids deserves to succeed. There is not one student that doesn't deserve to succeed. And we as Indigenous people talk about the 7 sacred teachings. If you don't know the spirituality of who we are as Indigenous people, let me show you this. And some of you will say, I know what it is. It's a braid of sweetgrass. And do you know why I carry it? I carry it to protect my flutes. And if you came to my home in Victoria, you'd see it above the door of my home when you walk in. And do you know why it's above my door? It's because this hair belongs to my mother. Every one of us. I don't care if you're religious or what religion you belong to. You know where you come from. You come from her. You know where you're going. When we die, we're all going back to her. I don't care who you are, how special you think you are, ashes to ashes. We come from her, we're going back to her. And I want you to know this. There is nothing like a mother's love. I adore my little girl, and I will never be able to love Victoria the way that Vicky does. There is nothing like a mother's love. When you see a mother bear come out of the bush with her cub, move. The only thing meaner, more aggressive, and more protective than a bear is moose. If you see a mother moose come out with her cub, run. And the only thing meaner, more dangerous than a moose is a woman. When a mother's protecting her child, look out. I've seen mothers come into my principal's office and look at me and say, that's my baby. And on that count, I said, okay, you win. Whatever you want, the answer is yes. I'm wrong, you're right. She says, oh yeah, Cody, down. She's my mother. So what I do is I braid her beautiful hair, and I smell it, and it's the sweetness of earth. It's the sweetness, that first smell that I have. And what I do after I braid it, and I leave a little tobacco, and I sing a song for my mother, I put it above my door, and it says, Mother, please make sure that only healthy spirits come into my life. Anything unhealthy, please cast it away. I do the same in my daughter's room. You'll see a braid of sweetgrass above my daughter's door. You'll see it on her little counter next to her smudge. What else do we do with these? I keep it in my flutes to keep my flutes healthy. Here's another one. And if as Albertans you don't know what it is, it's buffalo sage. It's one of 4 sacred plants. It behooves every one of us to know that no matter where you live in the world, we share similarities. And you know what I do with my sage? I know where it comes from. I know it's another gift from my Creator. I'll take off my glasses and I'll burn it and I'll slowly wash my face and I'll say, please, Lord, Creator, allow me only to see the things that you want me to see. And then I'll smudge it over my mouth and I'll say, please only allow me to say the things and make sure I do say the things that I should be saying. And then I cleanse my heart. Creator, make sure I feel the right feelings. Never let me feel anger or disrespectful. That's why we use it. Similar tobacco, it's the most important of our plants. And then cedar, of course. We spread that cedar around. It's that 4th sacred plant. Ladies and gentlemen, I want that you know that you should know these things. As a mother, as a father, you should know these things. So let me send you home with this. Your kids have to read, and it shouldn't be that way. They should be allowed to succeed for whatever gift Creator gave them. And it goes like this. We have 7 sacred teachings, and they go like this. For those who don't know, the medicine wheel, yellow, red, or depending on whether you're Cree or Ojibwe or where you live in Canada, it could be yellow, black, red. And for those who don't know the geography of my country, the sun always rises in the east. It's always yellow. But if you live in Western Canada, we think of black in the south and red because we see that sun right there. So on our medicine wheel, it's red there, and there it's always white. The north is always white. Our life takes the shape of a medicine wheel. Every one of us born in the east. And friends, I'm not going to give you the teachings, all 7 teachings. I'd like just to take you to the second one. The first teaching is humility. When I see the sun, you know what I see? A huge, huge sphere in the sky. And what's it tell me? I'm small. I am nothing special. It's powerful. I am weak. What does it teach me? To do what Machika and the wolf does. I bow my head in humility. It teaches me humility. And friends, we were all born in the East. Not one of you came out of your mother's womb and looked at the world and said, I'm going to rock this place. Like me, you came out and you said, whoa, whoa. We were born in humility. That is the truth. What color do I associate? Yellow. What animal? Wolf. What plant? It's where I was born. I was born from my mother. I associate that sweet grass with my mother. Now, when the sun is there at its zenith, I'm going to be 25 years old. Then when I'm 25 years old, I look to honesty. Ladies and gentlemen, every one of your kids is a gift. You know that. They have to be honest with themselves. Don't build your life on your ego. Don't make your kids go to university so that they can make a lot of money or they can feel really good about themselves. You look at your children and you find what gift they have and you help them build that gift. Do you know how many parents just blow it for their own self-interest? Because I want my child to achieve. Every one of your kids is something special. And if I say to you, what is it? You say, well, don't do that. What is it? Do you know what my gift was? Talking. Do you know what I got in trouble for all my life? Talking. I remember my kindergarten teacher looking at me saying, Bouchard, veux-tu taire? Bouchard, do you want to stop talking? I remember looking at her saying, no, not really. Grade 4, Bouchard, tais-toi. Bouchard, stop talking. Grade 9, a priest looked at me and said, Bouchard, ta gueule. Ta gueule means your mouth, but it's not the mouth of a person, it's the mouth of an animal. I remember looking and saying, you're a priest, I'm a boy, and you're not even a nice person. Not one person ever told me what my gift was. Ladies and gentlemen, I was 46 years old. I was the principal of a high school in West Vancouver when Creator came to me and said, son, you're wasting the gift I gave you. And I went home over a lunch hour and I looked at my beautiful wife and I said, Vicky, I'm not supposed to be a school principal. I'm a storyteller. God has given me the same gift that he gave Raven, and I'm wasting my life. And she said, sweetheart, you only have 5 years now till you retire, and then you can do that full time. And I said, no. I resigned this morning. She said, you what? I said, I quit my job. And she said, you quit your job? What about your pension? I said, yeah, I know. And she said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm a storyteller. And she said, okay, who are you going to tell stories to? And I said, I really don't know. And she said, what stories? I said, sweetheart, I don't know. And it really didn't go very well for the first month or two. But when we got over the hump, ladies and gentlemen, for 16 years I've been on the road, and I talk for a living. And when I meet my Creator, he's going to throw his arm over my shoulder and he's going to say, sweetie, did you use the gift I gave you? I'm going to say, I almost missed it, Lord. But yeah, I did. Oh, by the way, I wish you'd have made me a hockey player. They make a lot of money, and I loved hockey. And friends, your job is to make sure you help your children find that gift and develop their life not around ego, not around money, but around the gift God gave them. If your child can dance, for heaven's sakes, you make sure they focus on that. If they're good with animals, how many people in this life can make their life's work working with animals? It's just an amazing phenomenon. I could go on and on, but that's not what I want to do with you this morning. During my breakout session, I'll do some of that. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the teachings. But for now, I want to make sure you all go home with this. Ladies and gentlemen, as of now, your kids have to be able to read, and I want you to know this. It's a scam. Donald Trump or whomever in the U.S. are scamming us. There is a department in the U.S. called the Department of Reading that's worth $7.3 billion, and they are making money on our children by telling them that reading is something that you can buy or that we could force on our kids. And Maria Montessori, and you've all heard of Montessori schools, Maria Montessori said it's a scam. It's not true. Any person can read. Anybody can read. Just like anybody can walk and talk, and Maria Montessori said reading is as natural as walking and talking. Any one of your kids can become a reader, and I want you to go home today knowing how, and all of a sudden the responsibility is yours to set the table so your children can become a reader. And they don't have to be 4 years old or 9 years old. They can be 24 years old or 17. Your kids deserve to read, not only so that they can succeed in school, but so that they can have access to the world. My son is 37 years old. He sells Mercedes-Benz for a living. My little boy is a non-reader. And my life's ambition is to continue to help Adrian become a reader. I buy him books. I buy him e-books. I do things so that my son can we talk about books. I'll tell him about something I read. I'm not going to give up on my son. He's 37, so what? Your children deserve to know, and I want you to know this. So take it to the bank and make note. What's it take to become a reader? There's only 3 things. And it's not something that you can buy at Toys R Us. It's not something that your teacher can say to you. By the way, if your child or son was in this program, it's not. The first thing it takes is to take time. Your kids will walk when they're ready to walk. They'll talk when they're ready to talk. And ladies and gentlemen, they will read when they're ready to read, not when you tell them to read. And here's a phenomena that just blows my mind. For those of you who haven't figured it out yet, girls mature more quickly than boys. And if you haven't figured it out, go to your child's schools and watch the grade 8 girls walk out of school. They look like they're walking down some runway. The boys come out, snot dripping down their nose. They look like they should be in grade 3. I don't know when boys catch up to girls. Some of us never do, Darren. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know this. In Alberta, we test children in grade 3, and some of the boys in grade 3 don't want to read. They want to pee in the sandbox. Son, sit down and read this. I don't want to read this, kid. You think I go outside and play? No, read. I said, go down. And then you grab that little girl and say, would you read this? She'll say, the complete works of William Shakespeare, one of my favorite readings. Do you want to know what it takes to become a reader? The first thing it takes is time. They'll read when they're ready, and you as parents have to shelter your kids. If your child is 6 years old and they're in school and somebody's going to make them feel like they're a non-reader, you stand up as that protector you are and you say, hands off. I don't think my child has had enough time. Go away. Don't test them. They can't test your children if you don't want them to. You have the power to say no. Just keep them out of school when they're running them through those mandatory tests. Ladies and gentlemen, my little girl, true story. Today she's 18 years old. Victoria was a slow walker. Don't ask me why. She was a slow walker. She walked at 14 or 15 months. She was a slow talker. She just didn't talk until, and then when she started to talk, it was mumbo jumbo. I don't know. But I knew my little girl was going to be a slow reader. And the day that she went to school, it was with a letter from me, and it said, Dear GNS, my little girl was a slow walker, she was a slow talker, and she's going to be a slow reader. But she's got 1,000 books in her bedroom, and a dad who reads to her every night. Hands off. Don't touch her. Under no circumstances will you test my baby and make her feel like she's not a good reader. Under no circumstances will you take my little girl out of class for remedial reading. She thinks she's awesome. Hands off my baby. My little girl didn't write a standardized reading test until she was in grade 5, and by then, everybody knew she was the reading girl. My little girl graduated from grade 12 with a 92% average because she was a voracious reader, because I bought her the time she needs, and this is a true story. I was in Scarborough, Ontario a few months ago, maybe 2 years ago already, speaking to a parent group similar to yours, and I said, parents, your kids need time, and you have every right to shelter them and give them the time they need, especially little boys. And when I was done speaking, a young woman raised her arm and she said, David, the school called me in today to tell me that my daughter needs remedial help as a reader. And I said, and? She said, my little girl's 6 years old. I said, and? She said, she's exactly the little girl that you described. My little girl's a slow walker, a slow talker. David, I swear to God, she just needs more time. And I said, she probably does, sweetie. She came and she gave me a hug and she said, oh, thank God I'm here. When the whole hall cleared out, ladies and gentlemen, one person stayed behind. She was an Asian woman, Chinese background. And I said, miss, did you want to talk to me? She said, yes, I did. My name is Donna Kwan. I'm the director of the largest school board in Canada. I'm the director of the Toronto District School Board. And I looked at her and I said, oh. Donna, everything I said, I was just joking, right? I didn't mean anything I said, right? You know that. She said, what you just told these parents, I would like you to come and tell my 55 superintendents. Don't change a word. Tell them exactly what you said. And I said, I won't change a word, and some are going to get mad at me. She said, I'll pay you to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, kids need time. From that meeting, I went and talked to those superintendents, and here's the next one I got. I got a phone call inviting me to speak to 800 custodians, head custodians of schools in Toronto, janitors. Now, if you want a hard audience, it's 800 janitors. They didn't want to be there. They wanted to be in their school, working in their school, listening to a Métis author? No. So here we were in this huge cafeteria in downtown Toronto. These people, every one of them sucking on their Timmies. None of them had Starbucks. And my host, the guy that was supposed to introduce me, unlike beautiful April, was about 6'8". The guy was bald. He had hair growing from his pupils. I'm trying to describe ugly. I don't know how I'm doing so far. He just walked up and down like a lion in a cage, looking at the audience. Finally, he stopped, and he didn't come up to the microphone. Where he was standing, he whistled. They all looked at him, and he said, sit down. 800 people sat down as one. And he said, the boss heard this man speak, and the boss wants you to hear what he has to say. So I'm telling you now, you listen to what he has to say. And then he looked at me like this, went, I'm not lying, friends. I took the mic and I said, well, thank you for your warm welcome and your kind words of introduction. What do you say to that? I said, custodians, let me tell you why I'm here. I made the mistake of being honest. To become a reader, it takes three things. The first thing it takes is time, and you're not responsible for that. The second thing it takes is a hero. Somebody's got to be a hero and lead you there. And I've told that to Darren years ago, and Darren, who's sitting right up here in my audience, was in my first conference, as was Alandra, when I spoke to parents years ago. It takes a hero. Ladies and gentlemen, my two sons don't read, and you want to know why? Because of me. I'm their hero, and nobody told me that they looked up to me for everything in life. Nobody told me that if those boys were going to become readers, it's because their hero would read. And if they would have told me, I would have read. But nobody told me, so my sons don't read. But when I figured it out with my little girl, I read to Victoria every night before she was conceived, when she went into her mother's womb. I read to my little girl when she was 7, when she was 12, when she was 16. And I stopped reading to her when she was 18, not because she's a voracious reader, because when she turned 18, I became a loser. You were looking at a loser. I don't know what happens to a father when a girl turns 18. I think it's a physical thing that happened to me. However, it takes a hero. So I looked at those custodians and I said, I was a principal in West Vancouver, and I know who the heroes are. Ladies and gentlemen, I was in the office one day when a little girl called Jennifer came in bleeding from the knee. She was crying her heart out, and she was, I just fell on the cement. She looked up, and there was the principal, not the head secretary, the principal, and she stopped crying just like that. And she looked at me, and she said, where's Suzanne? Our secretary. And I said, she's right there having lunch. The tears came back. Suzanne, I got my name. She ran by me as though I was non-existent. Who was her hero? Was it me or was it that head secretary? Ladies and gentlemen, I was in the hallway one day and two kids came running in screaming, we got it, we got it. And I saw them coming and I said, Robbie, what did you get? Friends, they physically pushed me away to get it Enrico Samante, my Filipino head custodian. And they said, Enrico, we got it. Enrico put his arms around the boys and said, I told you. I knew you'd get it. And now, what are you going to do? And they turned around and they started to walk away. And I said, guys, if you want to talk to me, I'll be in my office. They didn't give two hoots about me. They cared about Enrico. He was their hero. Friends, the last year that I was a school principal, anybody who worked in my school had to go through me. I came into the office one day and there was a man sitting there sucking on a coffee. And I said, good morning, I'm David. He said, I know, David, my name is Jim. I'm here for an interview. And I said, oh, what have you applied for, Jim? Bus driver. And I said, oh, wonderful. And facility sent you here. They said, yeah, apparently anybody who works in this school has got to go through you. I said, yeah, Jim, I'll tell you why. It's because we've got such a focus on reading. I think that it's the one skill that kids need to succeed. And subsequently, I make sure I surround them with reading heroes. Jim, can I ask you what you're reading? And this man looked at me and he said, ask me what? And I said, what are you reading right now, Jim? And he looked at me and said, like a book? And I said, I was thinking, yeah, like a book. And he said, oh, yeah, I read magazines and things like that. I said, Jim, listen to me. I wish you the very best, and I know that there's all kinds of opportunities in our district, but not in this school. I know that some kid is going to leave a single-family home where mom didn't have a chance. She's got lunches to make. She can't be that reading hero. That kid's going to get to school and have a third-year teacher who's just worried about getting their accreditation, a principal who's focused on becoming superintendent, and they're going to slip through the cracks. And when they get on your bus, when they see you with a book in your hands, they know that you're a hero, and they're going to become a reader because of you, Jim. This isn't the school for you. I told that to those head custodians, and ladies and gentlemen, they gave me a standing ovation. When I was done, some guy came over and said, David, that bus driver that you're talking about, that's me. And he went into his bag, his man's purse, his merce, took out a book, held it up. I can remember the name of it. It was called Dirty Bastards. I remember the name because I saw it on Time. It's a series that I saw in Time magazine's top. He held it up and he said, this is what I'm reading now. I've been doing that for 15 years, and you were dead on about me being their hero. Ladies and gentlemen, kids need a hero. And I want to make this amply clear. As a parent, you've got to make sure that you do your best. And if you can't do it, and I can understand that, some don't have the time or the energy you make sure somebody's got the hero hat on. You go to the school and you say to your teachers, are you reading to the kids? Are you letting them read? Are you letting them see that? When I was a school principal, I shut my school down every day for 20 minutes. I said, teachers, this isn't so children can read. It's so that children can see you read. You are their hero. You pick up a book and let them see you read. To become a reader, it takes three things. The first thing it takes is time. The second thing it takes is a hero. My little boys didn't have a hero, and my daughter's got it, and because of me, my little girl is living a better life. And for those of you who have heard this book before, I'm sorry, I just can't not share it. It's that good. Not written by me, written by an Anglican minister in Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's called Reading with Dad, and it goes like this. This is me and my little girl, and it deserves to be every one of those children that you have under your care. They should see you read. You should try to read to them, and if you need help, grab a bookmark, email me anytime and say, David, what would you recommend for a boy in grade 5? What would you recommend for a boy who's 23 years old and still not reading? David, what would you recommend for? I'm there. I'll answer you from Tim Hortons somewhere and wherever I am in Canada, and I'll give you some thoughts. It takes time. It takes a hero. And the third thing is very obvious. It takes books. No books, no reading. Do you want to know part of the reason that we struggle in so many reserves? We have no books. And the second part to that, well, in most of our reserves, no books. And when some of you say, they don't even have water. In a lot of our reserves, we don't have water. In a lot of reserves, we don't have a librarian. In a lot of our reserves, there's some unique situations where that's different. And obviously, Maxine's school is one of them. But I will say this. It's a problem. No books, no reading. And I want all of you to take this home. Before your child would read, they need a book. But they need a book they can see themselves in. If they don't see themselves in a book, they're not going to want to read it. So if you're of Chinese background, see if you can find something with your legends to they'll personalize it. If you're Filipino, I've got some work to do. Mina, we don't have the amount, when you think of the number of Filipino living in our beautiful country, and I hear Donald Trump saying, we don't want Filipinos, and I say, oh man, are you making a mistake? I mean, I love everything about Filipinos and their names. Don't they have the coolest names in the world? My best friend at home, Enrico Samante. I mean, that's his name. Wouldn't you die for a name like Enrico Samante? I mean, to be a 17-year-old boy and walk over to a girl and say, yo, I'm Enrico Samante. Right now she wants you. Or there's the second option. There's my stepson. Hey, how you doing? My name is Todd. Fail. I know. You've got to see yourself in a book, and it's got to be accessible. Parents, don't buy your kids a book that thick if they can't read it. They won't read it. That's why graphic novels have been so cool. That's why there are series out there where all of a sudden you can say, oh yeah, Bone. You can get a lot of boys hooked in something like Bone where it's a graphic novel. Now, of course, they're seeing more and more of that. Get them something that they can see themselves in and that is accessible to them. And I'd like to speak to you about some of those, but I have this feeling that I'm way, way overdue. So when I say to you that, you can see I could have stayed here all morning, but I couldn't stay here all morning because April is giving me that evil eye that obviously Corey lives with. Friends, I don't mind telling you, for me, you're the best audience in the world. Why? Parents who know better, do better. And because I can't imagine anybody wanting to be somewhere more than you. And my wish for all of you today is that you can go home inspired, knowledgeable, with some ideas and some fire. My hope for you today is that some of you go home and download that Audible book. My hope for you today is that some of you will make a list of some of the books I talked to in my session and go straight to chapters and buy them, or go straight to your public library and buy them. Did you know that in Alberta's libraries, if you're a First Nation person to use a library in Calgary, you've got to pay $60? Just a passing thought. I just thought I'd share that. Did I happen to mention that I really enjoy being with you? Thanks.
Thank you, my friend. I do have a little gift for you, a token of our appreciation.
Thanks.
As well as we'd like to let you know that Literacy and Learning Day Society of Edmonton has made a donation in your honor to the Métis Federation of Canada for $250.
Oh, is that ever sweet? Is that ever nice? Whose idea was that?
Christmas.
Oh, man.